Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Thursday, the 22nd of November, comes to you from London. And we're looking at the European opening. US closed today for Thanksgiving, so we don't have that heads up on the markets for Europe. But looking first of all at currencies, see the dollar back into short-term bullish territory, just holding on to its strength here. So we're seeing dollar strength is quite a key there. Looking at the euro, we see the euro is just weakening slightly, so we are just seeing that falling away as well. Japanese yen, we're seeing the dollar just down slightly here, but it is in bullish territory on all three time frames, and this is normally a lead indicator for the dollar. So the dollar looking set to strengthen over the next day or two. Sterling is lower against that stronger dollar and bearish on all three time frames, so still looking very vulnerable with the Brexit uncertainty. And against the euro, much the same picture, teetering along the bottom here as well. Against the Swiss franc, we're lower, and against the Aussie dollar, we're actually just fairly flat there. Bitcoin has had a torrid week, and we're really still just in the doldrums, having had those falls, bearish on all three time frames, with potential downside of another $1,000 on the short-term chart. And this target was given back in September for 4,400. That's where we've got to, given and met. We've got a new downside target. If we see new lows on Bitcoin, that's going to be very, very worrying for any owners of Bitcoin. Looking at the markets, the S&P was up slightly yesterday. Generally, the US was recovering a little bit, but still looking pretty bearish, medium and short term on the charts. The same is true of the Dow. That medium and short term chart worrying, and the Russell 2000, the broader based index, has been bearish for quite some time now, and again testing new lows. As I said, the markets closed today in the US, so looking at the FTSE future, we've just opened in the UK, and we're down on the futures. And we look at the DAX, we're down, we're up 1.3%, so quite a strong recovery there on the back of the US rise yesterday. The CAC 40 in Paris is up 0.63%. Tokyo up 8% on the 400 index, and the Hang Seng up 0.1%. China down 0.2%. But has recovered actually for the last several weeks, China, but these downside targets still hang over the Chinese market and have been our big fear really all year. Looking at the Sensex, we're actually just climbing a little bit higher, though we're down this morning, and the Aussie market up just under 1%, so looking stronger there, although the medium and short-term charts are worrying, and even the long-term chart in Aussie is also quite worrying. Crude oil is further down 0.6%. US fuel inventories are higher than expected, and that's driving the price. OPEC has announced some potential production cuts, but and that may be just supporting the price at the moment. But we do have again downside targets here. $61 is where the new short-term targets are, and this $60 target has been in train really since the beginning of October. So again, we're still pretty bearish on crude. WTI also looking very worrying, and we've activated a big downside target here. So not quite long-term bearish yet, but crude oil looking worrying. US nat gas back to $4.39, but boy oh boy, have we seen some real volatility in the nat gas price over the last couple of weeks, and at the moment we're holding that bullish trend. If we take a look at gold, gold actually rising on quite a lot of the uncertainty, looking much better on the medium term chart, short term growing as well, and silver also similarly rising. US 10-year yields sitting still bearish on the short-term chart at 3.05%. They've pulled right back, and the German bond prices actually rising on those lower yields. Apple still a worry. They were down yesterday 0.1% in a rising market. So Apple is really the big concern at the moment. We've got downside targets on Apple of 152, 166. So we are seeing that. Amazon was up 1.4% and still bearish on that short-term chart, as is Alphabet and Facebook. Now this data all coming from Thomson Reuters Icon. If you're using Metastock, is coming from Metastock Zenith. But looking at the stocks themselves across Asia, we see, and this data now coming from Yahoo Finance, so a good free data source, and coming into Updata, and we see here we've got a mixed picture across the board, but most markets are actually looking a bit better. Looking at the Nasdaq, we see here where we were last night, and we talked about Apple bucking the trend and being lower. Just looking at some of the other majors, we had Microsoft, we're actually up 1.3%, so that was looking stronger. Tesla, one we've been keeping an eye on as well, was actually down 2.7%, but still remaining short-term bullish. Against the Dow Jones, Tesla has actually outperformed this year. It had underperformed, now it's outperformed the relative chart, looking much stronger than it has done. In Oz, we saw mineral resources was a big jump, up 26%, but not enough really to turn these charts bullish. Galaxy Resources up 2.7%, and if we look at the other end of the scale, we had Costa Group down 6%. We had quite big moves here. Wesfarmers, for example, down 2%. So really has had a torrid time as well. Taking a look at China, we saw only a handful of stocks up, most stocks down. Hong Kong we see here as well, and in India also. And Yahoo, looking at the Japanese market, we see here Sapporo actually still rising and really underway in that recovery mode. And taking a look at the other end of the scale, we see Pacific Metals down 4%. So quite an interesting chart there. Also, of course, there's been a lot of news around Nissan, and we can just take a quick look at the chart and see how that has recovered or reacted. And you can see there's quite a lot of, but Nissan Motors were actually up just slightly, but we see here the share price has really struggled. And in fact, Nissan have been falling consistently relative to the Dow Jones for the last couple of years. So it's not news to the chart. Looking at Europe now, just open on the FTSE 100 here, we see we've got quite a mixed picture coming in, but if we look at Standard Chartered, we see here is the best performer, up 2%. So we're seeing that looking strong. A real mix of stocks that are rising, but again, we've got quite a lot of fallers. So looking at Centrica, down 9% this morning. They've got news out, and that's looking worrying. And a lot of the commodity stocks lower, so we're seeing that. Take a look at Sage Group. Sage really still falling away, having had a terrible year, really underperforming the Dow Jones by 32%. Taking a look at the FTSE 250, we see here Contour Global up 5%, so that's the best performer. Looking at the other end of the scale, we've got Rotork Group down 8%. And Vivo Energy down 5%. So we really are still seeing some pretty terrible looking charts there. Taking a look at the stocks, the Euro stocks across Europe, again, we've got quite interesting picture here. Delivery Hero in Sweden up 3%. Galp Energia in Spain up 2%. But looking in Portugal, I should say, looking at the other end of the market, we've got Alice Europe down 10% in Amsterdam, and Centrica is amongst those laggards. So we're really seeing quite a big move there. That's it for today. And remember, the US is closed this afternoon. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.